All right. Hello to everyone who's joining us. I'm going to give it a couple minutes just to let everyone filter in from the waiting room, and then we'll get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Kelsey Erickson Streufert. I'm the Chief Public Affairs Officer for the Texas Restaurant Association. We are really excited to bring you this webinar today called Find Your All, the latest food service trends and happenings in Dallas. Few housekeeping items before we get started. We will be monitoring the Q&A and the chat features. So for everyone watching, please engage along with us by asking questions, dropping comments. We'll be monitoring that as we go. We are recording this webinar and it will be available on our YouTube page once we're done. So if you missed something or think about a great colleague or a friend who needs to watch it, send them the link, and that way we can reach a lot more people. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a really exciting discussion planned. So much is happening in the food service industry right now, and Dallas really is kind of the epicenter of a lot of that. So we've got a lot of exciting things to talk about, but before we dig in, I want to give all of our panelists a chance to introduce themselves. Tony, I'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Tony Abruscato. I'm the new Chief Marketing Officer of the Texas Restaurant Association. I come via Chicago after a 35-year history of special events and marketing, as well as owning a public relations firm that focused in on restaurants and hospitality. So I'm excited to be here in Texas.
We're excited to have him, and we will not hold his Chicago roots against him because we love for everyone to move to Texas. Corey, let's go to you next.
Hi guys, Corey Mobley here. I am the Executive Director for North Texas region of the Texas Restaurant Association based here in Dallas now. And I will echo Tony, I am a transplant here, a little over a year now, a little bit longer, but a Florida native, but glad to call Texas and the Lone Star State my home. So I'm glad to be here today and looking forward to some good discussion.
Awesome. Sarah, we'll go to you next.
Hey guys, I'm Sarah Blaskovich. I'm the restaurant reporter for the Dallas Morning News. I've worked at the Morning News for 10 years and born and raised in Dallas. So this is my home and will be probably forever. I have the pleasure of talking to chefs and restaurant owners every day, both about the food they cook, but also the businesses that they run. I think sometimes people think that a job about food is just all about food. And it's important to me that it's also about the business models, the dollars and cents, the labor market, fairness, insurance, all those types of things that the TRA talks about a lot. So it is my pleasure to be here. I love nothing more than to talk about trends in Dallas food.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Craig?
Hi, everyone. I'm Craig Davis. I'm the President and CEO of Visit Dallas. I am a transplant to Dallas as well. I came from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and before that, Toronto, Canada. But I came here 2.5 years ago, and I'm absolutely loving the experience here.
Love that. I'm also originally from Dallas, I guess I should say. So I feel like this webinar is a great microcosm of what's going on in Texas, which is, you know, folks who have been here, were born here, folks who are moving in from all over the country. And it truly is that melting pot, which we love about America, is so exemplified by our industry, which is something that I've always loved. So what are we here talking about today? We have a big event, two big events really, coming up in the Dallas area, which we're going to talk about quite a bit. The Texas Restaurant Show, formerly known as TRA Marketplace, and the Lone Star Bash. We're going to get into the details of those, but I think, you know, it's so appropriate that we're having these events right now in Dallas. Everyone on this webinar knows this industry, the food service industry, the hospitality industry, we have seen more change in the past 2 years than probably the previous decade. And there's reason to think that there's so much change still coming on the horizon, right? We joke about the new normal. I don't think we even know what the new normal is going to look like a year from now, because we sure didn't expect to be where we are now a couple of years ago. So there's a lot of change. With that comes uncertainty, but also a lot of opportunity and a lot of need to adapt, need to try new things. And we see so much of that happening in Dallas right now. And it's the perfect time to come together as an industry, no matter what kind of restaurant you are, no matter what kind of business you are that serves restaurants, come together and really think about what do we want our future to look like as an industry and how do we get there? And that's really what the Texas Restaurant Show is about. So I think for the purposes of this discussion, it's looking forward, it's anticipating, okay, not only what are we seeing right now, but where is that heading in the future? So with that, Tony, I'll start with you. Kind of set the stage for us here. What is the Lone Star Bash? What is the Texas Restaurant Show? And why are we doing it in Dallas this year at this time?
Well, thanks so much, Kelsey. And I think the framework that you talked about is so important. When you talk about the Texas Restaurant Show, this is the 85th anniversary of the Texas Restaurant Show, which is very exciting. It's the 85th anniversary of the Texas Restaurant Association that was created out of Dallas. And so it's very appropriate that we're back to our roots here. And the interesting thing about this show is that it's just not an industry food show, but it's got the food show, it's got products, it's got development, it's got manufacturing. It also has education. We try to, we want to inspire and educate the next generation and look at what the industry is about. So I always look at this show as an exciting opportunity to bring, as Kelsey said, bring everyone together within the industry, whether it's a single operator, mom and pop store, or if it's a large food chain. And what the show does is gives access. It gives unparalleled access to information and to networking and peers within the industry, so that, again, even if you're the smallest restaurant in the state of Texas, you're getting the same information that the largest restaurant chain in the nation is going to have. And the Texas Restaurant Show brings all of that together. So we'll have the education, we'll have the booths, we'll have food, we'll have booze. We've got amazing booths that are showing what's happening in the liquor industry, wine and industry as well. And so, and as a way to do that, as we do in the hospitality industry, it's hard to have a big event without having a big party. And so the Lone Star Bash is the largest fundraising event for the Texas Restaurant Foundation that funds our educational programming and our ProStart programs out to all the different schools and the different programs that the foundation does. And we're excited to have that at Gilley's this year. We've bought out the entire venue for Sunday night at Gilley's. We'll host our Texas Restaurant Awards, giving out the state's highest awards and achievements in the industry. We'll start off the night, and then we go into tastings with 30 chefs from Texas, 15 mixologists, open bars, and then a concert by Stoney LaRue. And so we've got a little bit of something for everybody at that event, all raising money for the foundation. So again, it's an exciting time for us to be in the industry. It's an exciting time to be back at our roots in our 85th year in Dallas.
Love that. So Corey, you are kind of our resident Dallas expert within the TRA. Why do you think it's so important that we're doing this event in Dallas this year?
I mean, it's Dallas. Where else could you ask for it to be in the whole state of Texas, right?
Good answer.
Yeah. It's been 5 years since we've been in Dallas for this event. It rotates around the state, and we're excited to be back. Like Tony said, whether you're a small operator or a large operator, you're going to get the same feel, see the same new trends and all the technology and the different alcohols and foods and everything that's out there in our industry that can help your business. Right now, I mean, I talk to operators every single week, and they're either delivering their pizzas for their companies or they're working saute in their kitchen on the line. So they're super busy. I think it's a good time for them to come and have this in their backyard to go see some new trends and see some technology aspects that are going to help make their jobs easier on a day-to-day basis. So we're excited to be back. And again, looking forward to everyone coming up to Dallas for the show and Lone Star Bash.
Absolutely. And I love what you said, Corey, about everyone being busy, but the importance of taking time to stop, to talk, to meet with people face to face. I mean, if we haven't learned anything over the past 2 years, it's that you can't replace those in-person interactions and stopping for a moment to think about not just what you're trying to do right now in the moment to survive, but how you're going to get ahead, how you're going to build moving forward. Craig, let me pivot to you for a second. We named this webinar very purposely, Find Your All, and that's a slogan that Visit Dallas uses a lot. Tell us what that slogan means. Why is it appropriate for Dallas? Just talk to us about what that means and how it really incorporates the city.
Of course. So we launched the campaign Find Your All last summer through our ad agency of record, Slingshot. And really what Find Your All means that you can find in Dallas those things that mean something to you. What is your own personal all? And of course, it's pretty cool that the all is the same all in Dallas. So we were able to incorporate that visually within all of our ads and promotions. But, Dallas is such an inclusive and diverse destination with, people from all backgrounds living here, establishing businesses, and you can find such incredible culinary and other types of experiences that you want. Most of them are one of a kind. And, we have 20 different entertainment districts with walkable access to live music, to boutiques, and of course, amazing food. So the campaign serves to position Dallas as a world-class must-visit destination. But we also, when we did the campaign last summer, we also did a research. We had a research firm, third party, do an analysis on how effective it was. And we found that 73% of the people that we spoke with actually recalled seeing that, that Find Your All tagline. So it was very effective for us.
That's awesome. Well, and the diversity is so key, both for our current, but also our future. We certainly see that in the restaurant industry. It's really one of our strengths. We're one of the most diverse industries, not just in terms of workforce, but entrepreneurs, right? You think about that immigrant family that comes to the US and starts a small business. It's really the American dream, but also very much the core of who we are as an industry. So I love that that's reflected so well in Dallas. Sarah, talk to us about what we're seeing in the industry now, where we think that's heading. What are some of the trends that we'll probably see reflected at the show this year?
Certainly. Something we've seen in the last couple of years, maybe more than in the years before it, is out-of-town restaurants that want a piece of Dallas. They want to be in this community. They watched, you think of California and New York, restaurateurs there watched their communities get crushed. And certainly this happened in Texas as well, but they saw opportunity in Texas to move here and to operate restaurants that they thought people would want to go to at a time like now. And they're right. So Mendocino Farms from California, the personal favorite of mine. I just love that place for lunch. Carbone from New York. There are so many more, but there are big brands that want to get into Texas that weren't created here. And that's a really important food business story. A couple other trends, because of the pandemic, we're seeing smarter and slimmer menus across every restaurant. Many places decided, instead of having 40 items, we really need to do 10 things well. And diners should reflect on that. It made the dining experience better, in my opinion. I would love to see every place have a more focused menu with their best things than sell too many things and have some of them not be excellent. And this is across the board. This goes high end, and it also goes down to a fast food place. Menus can be slimmer and smarter, and the pandemic created that. A couple other things, omakase restaurants and tasting menus. We're seeing more of these. We have 2 omakase restaurants in Dallas now. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, an omakase restaurant is a Japanese restaurant where the chef picks every course and serves it to diners. There's no menu, there are no choices. It is a beautiful way to eat and a very cool way to experience the Japanese tradition that we didn't have a lot of here in Dallas yet. I just went to a new one called Tatsu last night. I can't get it out of my mind. It's so special. It's also expensive, and there are 300 people on the wait list. So hard to get into some of these places because they're so specialized. We are going to see more high-end restaurants hunt for Michelin stars. In Texas, we don't have the Michelin Guide yet, but we have a James Beard category for Best Chef Texas. So someone in Texas will always win a James Beard Award. We don't have Michelin inspectors who give Michelin stars to Texas restaurants, but you're going to see restaurateurs in the next couple of years beg for it. We want Michelin stars. We want tourists to come here and get recognized for those high awards. And I believe they will come. Let's see, barbecue has never been better, especially in Dallas, Fort Worth, but all over Texas. I think that Fort Worth is the barbecue capital of the entire state. right now. There's just
Fighting
so much
words.
to eat there.
Fighting words, Sarah.
I know. And I will travel literally anywhere in the world for barbecue. It is my very favorite topic to write about. Anybody who has not eaten in Fort Worth, you have to, and you have to stand in line, and you have to get the beef rib. You have to do it all. We're having a good time at barbecue. Finally, the last thing I'll say is that we are celebrating restaurants owned by all kinds of people. Restaurants are not only owned by middle-aged white guys anymore. We have women, we have people of color, and it's important to Texas and beyond to think about these restaurants. And we're watching people who own these restaurants win awards. We're watching them be on television and on podcasts. And I encourage everybody to continue to look for that.
I love that. It's so cool to see my home city really be on the culinary map and get some of the recognition that I think we absolutely deserve. I'm a big Top Chef fan. I'm sure I know
me too.
Houston, but it really helped put those Texas chefs on the map.
Absolutely.
Which is really exciting to see. Can't wait for Michelin stars. I think we totally deserve it. I've been to Michelin star restaurants and said, there's a place back in Texas that does this a little bit better. So it's about time in my book. Tony, talk to us about some of the exhibitors we'll see. We've mentioned technology, we've mentioned packaging, and all of the ways that our industry is evolving. How do the exhibitors play into that this year at Marketplace? Sorry, the Texas Restaurant Show. Every time I say Marketplace, I'm gonna take
That's one. We give you one. We give you one. Another $1 in the jar. Another $1 in the jar. So the exhibits. We're so excited about it because we actually we have sold over 500 booths to the show. Our budget was more like $450. We're over 500 booths for the show, and they're really coming in as Kelsey said. The technology aspects and the delivery aspects and packaging. Because as we're looking at what different trends are, as much as people are eating out, but they're also taking food to go. And during the height of the pandemic, it was so essential for restaurants to be able to have packaged food to go. But it's the thing that's equally important is that you want to be able to have that restaurant experience when you get home. You want that food that you eat at your kitchen counter that you picked up from the local barbecue place to taste like it would in the restaurant. And so, at first everybody was like, give me a Ziploc bag and a little container, and we'll send it home with you. And so now we're looking at the industry and saying, this is here to stay, this take-home delivery. So packaging is key. So we focused on how can we bring in packaging folks, robots, and the robotic industry. And from everything right now, I've been reading National Restaurant News and others talking about with the shortage of staffing and the availability is that restaurants are turning to even like robotic line cooks where they're shaking the fry basket and flipping the burger. Those types of things are happening to help the industry along the way. And even serving, we had at the show last year, we'll continue to have this year, the robots that will bring drinks to your table and show you how to do different aspects. So it's important for us to not just have booths at the show, but have booths that are informative and that are on trend with the market. And as we go throughout the seasons is not only finding what's on trend, but also helping develop that trend and talking to our members throughout, there's 50,000 plus restaurants in the state of Texas. And all of them may not be members of the Texas Restaurant Association, but we do represent them one way or the other when we go in for legislation and things. And so we want to make sure that we're staying on point and on trend. So they're going to be able to see that technology, food service, food products, and also other products that affect, Sarah said, it's just not always about the food when you talk about restaurants. So it might be payment processing. It may be insurance. We have the Texas Restaurant, we have an insurance alliance where our members can save money on insurance, and those folks will be there and talking about that. The other part is, it's so important is that the staff that you do have, how can you take care of them? How can you better treat and have a better environment for that workforce? And so we have a lot of companies that are coming together talking about workforce development. And so you'll see those and be able to talk about the technology, about scheduling. The old days, you'd have to go by the restaurant on Monday to pick up your schedule for that week. You never could plan out. Now it's all on an app based and you can log in and do a variety of things. So those types of vendors will be with us as well. and I mentioned before, we'll have people cooking. After all, it is a restaurant show. We'll have people cooking. We'll have people sampling and tasting. Southern Glacier is coming in with their wine and spirits. We have a huge pavilion with wine and spirits, as well as other craft beverages that we'll have. We've got an Italian group. We're doing the Piazza Italia, and so we're working with a group of Italian importers and manufacturers that will be representing that, and it's our goal to continue that growth of these different pavilions as people see them throughout the way. So we're excited about all those exhibitors coming into the show this year.
I love that. And I think it really speaks to one of the things Sarah said about streamlining menus. That's a big
Absolutely.
trend we're seeing too. It's often about doing fewer things really well. And I think a lot of the exhibitors help restaurants do that too, right? Whether it's robots, so you don't need as many bussers, or technology solutions, so your hosts and hostesses spend less time on the phone because more can be done online or using various technologies. So really helping folks reduce those costs, because we know they're skyrocketing right now on everything, and still deliver a really quality product. And I think that's another thing Sarah really hit on, right? Is whether it's omakase or some kind of different dining experience, people are willing to pay more for that if they truly feel like they're getting a great experience out of it, and if it's worth that value. So helping people do more with less. Craig, let me bring you back into the discussion. We're talking a lot about the growth Dallas is seeing, the diversity. Tell us more what you're seeing from your perspective on that, looking at those trends every day, and especially how they impact our hospitality and tourism industries.
Well, the growth is just amazing. And what we're experiencing is the fact that there are so many people that are moving into Dallas, and that is creating a lot more opportunities for us at Visit Dallas to sell the product that we have. And if we're being very honest, Visit Dallas owns nothing. We are the ones that market that which is already here. So when we hear of brand new restaurants opening up or brand new attractions opening up, that gives us all the things that we need to draw more visitation in. But we're working on just so many different things. We're excited about a new convention center that is down the pike, and an entertainment district that's going to surround the convention center. I don't know if many people are aware that there's an international district that's being planned for a big plot of land that's just south of the Galleria, and that will have an international, obviously the international district will have a food component that will be unlike anything else. So there are so many things that growth is helping to spur us, and it's helping us grow exponentially. So we're very excited about the fact that for a lot of other cities that have a net loss, it is inevitably a net gain for Dallas.
And how are the travel numbers looking, especially like conference tours, the business travel? I know those just took a beating during the pandemic. Yeah. Have those numbers recovered?
They did. Actually, they recovered back in March of this year. They exceeded March of 2019, which was our biggest year on record, and they have exceeded it since. So for the first time last month, we did $100 million in overall hotel tax revenue, which is a game changer for us. What's happening now is that conventions have come back. Tourism had never really stopped. For some reason during COVID, it was unsafe to travel for business, but it was safe to travel on leisure. So people we were, I think that the restaurant group had experienced the same thing with weekends being incredibly strong, with kind of a dip during the week. That has now leveled off. We're doing really, really well. The only thing that hasn't come back quite to the way it was prior to the pandemic is business travel. Business travel is still lagging a little bit, but all in all, the rest of the categories have more than made up for everything. So we're in really great shape, and we're very optimistic. Our business on the books in the next 2 or 3 years is increasing as well. So we're way ahead of pace. So notwithstanding the last 2 years, we have come back and then some.
That's wonderful news. And Sarah, go ahead, Tony.
Craig, I was going to say, Craig, and you can chalk up upwards of 1,200 room nights for the Texas Restaurant Show. So
thank you, Tony. We're very, very appreciated for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sarah, one of the things I was going to ask you about, you mentioned before we started just the crazy number of restaurant openings you're seeing in DFW right now. Tell us more about that, especially building off of what Craig was saying about, the travel really rebounding strong. That's great to hear.
Yes. So in the past 2 years, we'll say 2 years and some change since the pandemic started, most of the news stories that we were writing when it came to restaurants were about restaurants closing, or were educating consumers about restaurant and bar behavior. So we wrote stories early on. Is it even safe to go eat inside a restaurant? What does a doctor say about this? Obviously, you can't wear a mask and eat at the same time. So those were what we focused on for the first year, at least. We did see restaurants open in Dallas-Fort Worth. It was a much slower pace, and it was almost always out-of-towners who were opening those restaurants. In fact, the people who owned a lot of restaurants in Dallas in that first year would say, I would have to be crazy to open a restaurant in this time. And a lot of seasoned restaurateurs agreed with that. So we did see some newcomers to Dallas. The second year, then it was a lot about labor and wages and what it means to be a restaurant worker, what it means to be a responsible restaurant consumer. But then what happened is that 2 years after the pandemic started, every restaurant that ever wanted to open within those 2 years opened within 2 months, it seemed. And so we went from writing stories about restaurant closures and about how to be safe in restaurants and about how to support our workers to sheer stories about here's where you go and here's what you do, here's what you're going to spend, here's what you're going to eat. Very exciting after 2 tough years. And I will venture to say even the restaurants that opened in April and May 2022, many of them wanted to open in fall 2021. And for the 6 months between fall and spring, stuff happened. We had an Omicron wave. We had supply chain issues. We had restaurants that were ready to go, but they only had one server and they needed 8. So there were a lot of things going on that kept people from opening on time. And then you throw in the cost of, or the added trouble of construction's just a little bit of an asterisk anyway. Even in good times, opening a restaurant on time can be tricky. So yes, in April and May of this year, we saw almost every high profile restaurant that I had been waiting for 6 or 8 months, all opened right before school started. And I have a theory about this too. You have to be open before school stops in May, because then tons of Dallas people go to their vacation homes or they take a trip. I know many people who leave for an entire month because it's so hot here. So a lot of these restaurant owners think if I'm going to open and if I can, it's got to be in April or May. We get a little bit of a consumer base there. Everybody goes away. It gets really darn hot. We work out our kinks. And then when they come back in the fall, we are still a new, cool, interesting restaurant without any of the flaws that they were working through. So that's why I think that big burst happened, Kelsey.
I think that makes a ton of sense. And, one of the things I did want to talk about was some of the ongoing challenges, and you touched on several of them: supply chains, finding enough workers. I mean, we've talked to so many operators who are ready to open another location, but they can't get any stoves. Hard to open a restaurant if you can't get any stoves, right? And it's not even like, oh, they cost 10% more. It's they're back ordered. We can't even tell you a date when we're going to get them.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge. And, I joke that I do all of our advocacy and legislative work for the TRA. There's not a bill, unfortunately, that I can take to the Capitol and say, here's the bill to fix the supply chain problems, right?
No. Right.
I wish there was. I'll keep thinking about it. But those are the kinds of problems we see as we're part of this global economy. And it truly is global, where a war in Ukraine impacts fertilizer costs that then increase the price of feed for our livestock, which then makes it harder to find chicken and beef for your restaurant and grocery stores. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge challenge right now. But again, I think that speaks to the importance of events like the Texas Restaurant Show and organizations like the TRA, because there isn't a silver bullet, but there are strategies, there are best practices, there are things we can learn from each other to make it better, right? We're not going to make it go away, but we can certainly do some troubleshooting and work on these issues. Corey, you're talking to restaurants in the DFW area all the time. Are those some of the issues that you're hearing about? What are the other pain points? What are the opportunities that you're hearing about when you talk to restaurants on the ground?
Oh, absolutely. From not being able to get fresh produce in to, meat shortages, everything. We need a new stove. Like you said, there's no telling, coolers, they're on back order for months and months. And, you can't keep your food cold without them. I think right now, the biggest pain point is, our labor shortage. Again, some initiatives that we work on, like the tool chest series that we have with the Greater Dallas chapter. We did a recruitment and retention event last week. What's working, what's not. Brought some local experts in to sit on a panel and talk about what they're doing to attract, talent and get them to, retain in their establishment. So workforce development, I think, is crucial to where we kind of lead to next, and cultivating some young minds and those students that are in culinary programs, whether it's at a high school level or a college level, to get them into restaurants and get them in working mode and keep them for the long haul.
Well, and Tony, that makes me think about some of our education sessions at the show, because of course it's not just the exhibitors, it's the conference portion, the education, the learning from each other piece too. What are some of the education sessions you're really excited about that tie into some of these challenges we're seeing in the industry right now?
Well, thanks. And there's quite a few actually, and I won't go through them all, I promise, but you can head over to txrestaurantshow.com and find out a whole list of our education. And the nice thing is that the education all during the show on each one of the stages is all free as part of the show. But this year we're adding in a major component of pre-conference education. And so we've connected with the folks from VAR Partners and Morgan Stanley to create a capital investment boot camp for people. And it's an all-day program, and it includes some beverages and lunch and a follow-up party. But it's all about industry experts leading through the process of franchising, becoming a franchisor, growing your business, how to plan for that capital. Franchising doesn't happen overnight, and buying it franchise isn't always what you think. And so we've got all C-level, suite level people coming in to talk about these programs. We've got professionals all over, and I always stumble over Chicken Salad Chicks is coming in. So their CEOs coming in. And so we've got some great people can check out. But then also, which you touched on earlier, and about that access and different things about, the different cultures coming together in Dallas and throughout the state of Texas, even more so. So a diversity, inclusion, and bias workshop. And James Pogue is renowned speaker on this topic. And James will be in with us on Saturday as well as part of that pre-conference education. And we also have ServSafe training going on. And we have continued education for educators in the industry that they'll be over at Dallas College doing a whole day program, or actually a 3-day program on doing that. Outside of that, we have some great I love our CEO, Emily Knight, comes together and she pulls some awesome people. So we have the CEO of Gordon Ramsay North America coming in, and she's going to do a fireside sit down with him. And then also we've got focuses on the other hot trend, which are ghost kitchens. So ghost chicken, I keep saying chickens.
Ghost kitchen is not a trend yet. Maybe that's what we'll be talking about at next year's show.
Ghost. I'm going to create it. See, we follow trend and we make trend. So
it's so hard to find now. It's ghost chicken.
So ghost kitchens, which is really popular right now. And whereas restaurants that have capacity will develop food menus and work with other restaurants to actually prepare their food and process and send out. So you'll see people like Jeff Alexander from Wow coming in and talking about those ghost and virtual kitchens. And one of our favorites, one of our board members, Chef Larry Delgado from McAllen, if you all remember that the show, Beat Bobby Flay. Well, there's only one chef that beat Bobby Flay, and that's Chef Larry Delgado, who's on the board of the Texas Restaurant Association. So Larry will be in as part of it as well. And then Corey touched on a little bit of the education and bringing kids in. So part of the Texas Restaurant Foundation, we are the leader in ProStart, which is a culinary and hospitality program statewide, but also national in scope. But Texas leads in, it's the #1 ProStart state in the country. And what we're able to have with us this year is the ProStart National Championship team from Texas, from Ben Barber Innovation Academy, so right outside of Dallas. Their restaurant management team won first place at the national competition, and their culinary team won 4th place at the competition. And what's really cool is that the management team, what they had to do was create a restaurant concept. And so their culinary team is actually going to prepare some menu items from that concept restaurant and present all of that on the Texas Beef Council culinary stage at the show. And then you'll be able to actually taste that food. And then again, for more information and the rest of that list, you can go to txrestaurantshow.com.
Yes, and I dropped the link in the chat to all of the education sessions so that everyone can check that out. You can also register to attend the show there, and we've got information about hotel, travel, all that good stuff. So make sure you check out txrestaurantshow.com for more info there. Craig, let's circle back to you. Tell us about some of the other initiatives y'all are working on at Visit Dallas, challenges, opportunities on the horizon.
Well, I mentioned really quickly in passing that one of the big things that we're dealing with right now in a good way is that the promise of a new convention center, which is going to take place on the site of the convention center where it sits now in just the southernmost part of downtown. And essentially what happens right now is the convention center is in an east-west rotation. They're going to cap I-30 like they did with Clyde Warren Park. They're going to start building the convention center in the Cedars, and then they're going to move it north and then connect it again with the Omni Hotel. After that's done, and during this whole time, we're going to be actually operating the current convention center. So that's going to be a challenge. But we get the opportunity to keep selling the city during a time when we would otherwise have nothing going on in terms of bringing convention business in. Then once we're finished with that, we're going to demolish the old convention center and then repurpose that land. It's going to be a boon for us because we'll be able to double the amount of business that we have coming into Dallas through large conventions, but also it will pave way for us to create a true entertainment district at the convention center. For those of you that have been at the convention center, you know that it's pretty much an island there. If you're there, you really don't know instinctively where to go for food other than the Omni Hotel. Other places are close, but you just don't instinctively know where to go. So that is going to pave the way for redevelopment and further acquisition of land and other opportunities to bring entertainment district into there as well. So for us, we're also, I mean, the opportunity is also the fact that the lack of staffing that are happening in the hotels and in our restaurant partners is affecting service levels and customers' overall, experience when they're here. But this is, fortunately for us, or unfortunately, it's the same in any other city. So it's really not something that differentiates them from us. But for our standpoint, we have so many wonderful things on the horizon right now. Also, Fair Park is going to be, they're going to get a wonderful renovation as part of this next plan. And that will bring in a lot more visitation into Dallas as well. So there are so many incredible things on the horizon. It's really hard to keep up with all of the brand new goings on.
Well, and I love that because it circles back to our founding 85 years ago at the State Fair of Texas, the one, the only, the State Fair of Texas. So it really does come full circle there. Corey, tell us about some of the things you're working on right now, other events in the Dallas area, other initiatives going on in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to hit on, I was telling Sarah earlier, our offices are housed at Dallas College here in Farmers Branch, and we just have a great working relationship with them and some other institutions in the area, just really looking at some other creative avenues and ways to help this workforce development angle. You know, our local chapter gives scholarships to students that are leaving high school and going into hospitality or culinary programs inside the state, outside the state, just to kind of continue their education. But we're really looking at some, like, again, some creative ways to craft folks to get them engaged with where they can go with this industry. You know, you hear of those success stories, start off as a busboy, they end up owning 15 restaurants or anything like that. But so that brings you back to the chapter as well. Some of the other events that we have, we're bringing back the golf tournament. It's been a few years. We're super excited about that. I'll be at the Cowboy Club. On top of that, every year in February here on out, we will continue to have our annual food and fashion show. I know, Tony, you and Kelsey were able to make it up to Dallas. And I don't know, Sarah, did you make it to food and fashion back in February?
No, I didn't, but I've been in the past. I probably went 4 or 5 years ago and for several years before then. It's fun.
Yeah, so 15.
Yeah, explain what it is, Corey, for people who don't know.
Yeah, so food and fashion obviously was raising money for our Texas Restaurant Foundation, and we pair 15 to 20 local designers, like fashion designers, with 15 to local restaurant operators and owners, and they create an outfit runway ready that's comprised of 25% food or something from their restaurant, whether it be to-go boxes, coffee filters, something like that. But yeah, they runway ready, and we set up a stage. They come out and bring food, serve it to all the guests, and then we start the show. We have someone who MCs, and they come walk the runway, and you know, we have some judges that judge them, and we also incorporate some of our local high school Pro Start programs. They come in, and they also have it's called the Benny Keith Culinary Cup. They compete too as well to have the best little bite-sized appetizers that they serve to all of our guests too. So really fun event. Next year will be 7th annual. It'll be hosted in Dallas again. We had it at the Fashion Industry Gallery back in February. Super fun, super exciting. You guys can find that on our local chapter page or www.foodandfashion.org. So yeah. It's
a really cool event for those who watch too much reality TV, like I clearly do. It's much like Project Runway's unconventional challenges, unconventional material challenges. And really is such a special event because it speaks to Dallas, right? This mashup of all the different kind of arts and artistic expression. It's a really cool deal. Sarah, let's go back to you. We talked about some of the trends on the horizon. What are the challenges that operators are talking to you about? What's keeping them up at night, and how are they working through those challenges right now?
Gas prices are a big challenge, and food prices are a big challenge. So, and when we think about gas prices, it is not only the DoorDashes and Uber Eats of the world, it is restaurants whose workers don't work in the same neighborhood and who, you know, used to maybe fill up once a week to drive to work 5 days a week. And now they, you know, they owe twice as much. So gas prices are affecting all of us. They are affecting restaurant workers too. And I think that's important to think about because some restaurant workers don't make huge wages. Some don't have insurance. So they're, you know, it is an industry in crisis when it comes to those topics. And I can't say that I know how to solve them, but it's important that we talk about what the issues are. And I know TRA talks a lot about that too. And helps restaurateurs sort of navigate those waters. So yes, getting enough laborers is a challenge. And of course, the best way to get great laborers is to pay them what they're worth. But I do believe, I don't have statistics on this, but I do believe that there are fewer restaurant workers in the industry than there used to be. And so we're also working from a smaller pool, which just makes everything a little more challenging. I saw Steve DeShazo is listening to this call, and I like to mention that Dallas College is turning out more chefs in Dallas to Dallas. These people, when they graduate with a culinary degree, can move anywhere they like. But I love the thought that if we don't have enough chefs in Dallas, that we are graduating a couple hundred a year, and that these people can work in our restaurants. And we need more facilities like that. Teaching people that working in restaurants, whether it's being a server or being a chef, is a job. It is a job forever. It's not even a full-time job. It's a job that adults do for their whole career. That's important. let's think other issues.
Well, and I want to jump in real fast there too and say it could be a fulfilling job, right? I think one of the things about the pandemic is people had a chance to really stop and think about what they want out of their job, out of their life, out of their commute. And in some ways that's a challenge for our industry because wages and benefits and some of these things are a challenge. But at the same time, that could also be a real asset if we're positioning it correctly, right? Because this is a job that can be incredibly fulfilling, incredibly creative, incredibly kind of human to human EQ, which appeals to a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to work 9 to 5 at a desk, right? So I think it's a challenge. And I love that you pointed out Steve DeShazo's work. We work with Dallas College all the time, and really creating that next generation of people who are going to be excited about coming into our industry and then who we're going to treat well so they want to stay in our industry. That's the other piece of it.
Yep. Other themes, I think during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of resilience in restaurants. I talked about slimmer menus already. That's important. We've also seen thinner business hours. So I have lamented the difficulty of finding an excellent lunch spot on Mondays. Lunch on Mondays at some of Dallas's most excellent restaurants does not exist. And that's a product of the pandemic. Mondays might have been a day that those restaurants were closed anyway, but many weren't. The pandemic hit, we had fewer workers. Where do you cut? Well, you cut on a day that maybe brings you the lowest income, and that might be Monday at lunch. Other restaurants closed for full days at the beginning of the week. You see restaurants that are only open Wednesday through Saturday and used to be 7 days. That's a consumer dilemma and it's a restaurant dilemma. I don't think restaurants are celebrating the idea that they're open fewer days or fewer hours. But it's one way that I think restaurant owners found they could save a little bit of money, not run the AC in that place, all day long. So I think we'll see these struggles continue. A lot of restaurants closed. Many made it through, but had to pivot to better to-go options. They had to work with third-party delivery. Then we all learned that third-party delivery really takes a chunk out of those small businesses' bottom line. Some take as much as 30% of a sale. So we will continue to watch restaurants try to recover from the pandemic, even 5 years from now. We will be talking about what we learned in the past 2 years. I think everybody knows this, but it's just in general been really tough for an industry with thin margins and consumers. I like to tell consumers, if you have even a little bit of extra money, it feels like you're being asked to tip everywhere, at your coffee shop, at your donut shop, at your cookie shop, in addition to restaurants. But if you've got an extra buck or two to tip, it goes to these workers doing a job that you, the consumer, have chosen not to do. And I think that's important for an industry in crisis.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to add to that too. If you could, tip, if you can't tip $1 or $2, maybe tip in some extra patience, because,
sure.
people that are working are, overworked, tired, and exhausted, and they're just trying to get the job done. So be mindful.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we talked about kind of branding our industry, branding the jobs and the careers that we provide. Craig, I know a lot of the work you do is branding for the city of Dallas as a destination. So talk to us about that and what's in the pipeline for that.
So, when I got to Dallas 2.5 years ago, it occurred to me that Dallas doesn't really have a specific brand. We're actually blessed by the fact that we are so much of everything. Somebody told me that Dallas is a microcosm of the entire nation in terms of its economic makeup. So there's not really one thing that brands us anymore. We're not an oil town. We're not a, there are certain things that certain destinations are known for specifically. So we actually are leading a group of economic development leaders here to come up with a unified Dallas brand that we can all use in our marketing going forward. So we have people like DDI, which is Downtown Dallas Inc. We have the Dallas Regional Chamber. We have the city. We have a bunch of different stakeholders at the table that are together. We're going to go through a brand identity process with our community. So we're going to bring our restaurant community into this whole discussion and research so that we can, on the other end, hopefully identify something that so specifically talks about Dallas that we'll be able to use that in our marketing and all of our brand efforts going forward. So that's really exciting, and hopefully it will come up with some really very specific brand elements that we can use from this point on.
I love that. When you were talking about what's Dallas's brand, I immediately thought of the Cowboys, and Sarah and I are kind of wearing a Dallas Cowboy blue by accident. So maybe you got to work in some blue into the brand.
All part of our brand.
Yeah, love it.
I'd like to think that Dallas's brand is food. I mean, food is a huge thing that people do here. We don't have the ocean and we don't have the mountains, but shoot, we have got a whole lot of restaurants.
When we've done customer focus groups, Sarah, that is the first thing that comes out. And they say, you know, the people that are not from Dallas that are talk about Dallas, that come here, they talk about our food and our nightlife, and the fact that Dallas is a little bit bougie, that our food product and our hotels and those kinds of offerings, our shopping, that is all part of that sort of mystique. And that may very well be our brand, is a bougie brand. Yeah. And if that's what it is, we'll have to own it.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
I love that. Corey, talk to us about Lone Star Bash. We're going to have some chefs and mixologists from the DFW area come prepare food, prepare cocktails, compete. Tell us more about that and what we should be getting excited to taste and drink while we're at Lone Star Bash.
Yeah. So when you think about bringing, again, all the flavors and flares of Dallas together, you know, that's when you reach out to specific people and say, hey, we've got you in mind. Can you come serve to our guests and everything? So, you know, a Tex-Mex staple that comes with a Mambo taxi, they'll be there, Mi Cocina. The Pelican House will bring some New Orleans flair out of Duncanville. So shout out to Louis Rainey and them. Asian Mint, we'll have them there serving some Thai cuisine. There's a new brand. I don't know if some of you guys have seen them start popping up. I think there's about 13 or 14 in the area. It's a fast, casual, fresh Hawaiian concept called Hawaiian Bros. They serve really great food. It's almost like a, you know, kind of Chick-fil-A concept, though. You go through it super quick, super fresh, local, fresh ingredients. It's really, really good. A couple places.
Even our drive-throughs are bougie in Dallas. That tells us something.
Yeah, so they're a growing brand. We're excited to have them get involved with the chapter here. They're just popping up left and right. So got a couple from Weinberger's Deli. I don't know if you've ever been to that deli out in Grapevine, but lines out the door. Sandwiches are amazing. Right down the road from him is Raina Frost with Max on Main. She'll be there as well, serving up some food. She's a great chef, huge supporter, contributor of our organization and just our industry as a whole. And then also, you know, we'll be able to cool down in the heat with some Henry's homemade ice cream. I know he's a staple. He comes out every year. He does our food and fashion event. A huge supporter and contributor as well. So those are some of the foods. I know our mixologists, we have, you know, 4 or 5 coming up from the San Antonio area as well, which is cool. It's a little bit easier for them to travel and come do some mixology and serve some drinks there. And I'll let Tony add to that, but we have Garrison Brothers. They're providing the bourbon side, and I think we have some vodka and some other people as well, right?
Yes, and we so we'll have categories in bourbon, rum, vodka, gin, and so each one of those categories, the mixologist will be using that main ingredient to come up with a favorite cocktail. And we've got one of our partners, A Closer Look, talking about technology and app-based, that you'll be able to use your app and vote for your favorite cocktail and your favorite mixologist. That mixologist will win $2,500 as being the lead mixologist at the Lone Star Bash, plus, you know, the bragging rights, of course, along with it. And so you'll see them in each side of there. And as Corey said, we've got these mixologists coming from throughout the state. We've got the chefs coming in from out the state, but we wanted to have that special focus on Dallas because, as you know, the show travels each year, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. And so it's an opportunity for Dallas to shine and show the rest of the state what it has to offer and how great it is to be bougie in Dallas, I guess.
And Tony, you know, I do believe we still have some opportunities for chefs and mixologists.
You read my mind, Corey. How do people get involved if they're sitting at home?
Anybody else
want to win that $2,500?
Absolutely. You know, and that I did not throw that number out by mistake. So what you can do is on the TXRestaurantShow.com. There's a link for Lone Star Bash, also on our foundation. And in there is a link to become a mixologist, or you can reach out to one of us here at the office, reach out to Corey, myself, Haley, here out of Austin, and we can connect you and get you all the information that you need. But it's a great opportunity and a fun night, and we call it party with a purpose. So it's a great time to come out, but it's also a great time to network. You know, you get this opportunity that you have people from the show and the industry coming in a casual setting, not where you're walking by somebody's booth and, you know, and you're in that sales mode and that's what you've got to do. But here's a nice, relaxed, comfortable setting, listening to the great Stoney LaRue come across and sampling out all this different food. And so it's an opportunity there to really talk with your peers and talk with potential vendors and suppliers along the way. And, you know, we couldn't do it without our sponsors. And so, you know, that support means a lot to us as well.
Absolutely. Okay. We've just got a few minutes left. So I'm going to do kind of a quick popcorn round. I don't know. There's some clever name for it that escapes me right now.
Lightning round.
Yes. Thank you. A quick lightning round. For each of you, when you look ahead, where Dallas is going, where our food scene in Dallas is going, what are you most excited about? Sarah, I'll start with you.
Oh God, that's a hard question. I am most excited about neighborhoods. I think I'll say, I believe there could be a world-class restaurant in almost every neighborhood in DFW, because we have talent and we have creativity and we have some money folks who can make these things happen. So yes, I'm excited about great food being everywhere in Dallas-Fort Worth, not just in the 5 or so hot Dallas neighborhoods that we can all think of right now.
Love that answer. And I did not give her any preparation or warning that question was coming. That was awesome. Corey, I'm going to you next.
Awesome. You know, I think Sarah mentioned it, all the new brands and the creativity that is coming to Dallas. Dallas is home of a lot of corporate headquarters here. You're seeing a lot of expansion here in the Dallas area. So to see the continued growth and the exciting changes and the new concepts that are going to be coming to Dallas in the future is what I'm looking forward to. And just to kind of hit on community, I was with the East Dallas Chamber of Commerce yesterday, and we were talking about how the community is so impactful and what food does to bring everybody together. And I'm excited to see what the local surrounding communities in the DFW area continue to do for our local entrepreneurs and just, you know, the people that create jobs and generate revenue for our city.
Love that. All right, Craig, you're next.
So our job is to sell to people that don't live in Dallas. By definition, success for us is people that come from the outside in and use our services, spend money in Dallas, and then leave and say great things about us. So for me, the biggest part of what I'm excited about is moving past the reputation of Tex-Mex and barbecue, which I love both of them. I just, as we start to expand our scene in terms of getting into different cuisines, I think that as that becomes synonymous with Dallas, that excites me. And I think that we're well on our way heading there.
Love that. Tony, take us home.
Well, it's hard after all of that. I was going to say me too, but I think the one thing that Craig just hit on is that multiplicity, the variety of the food, that the new international area coming to Dallas and the different restaurants and seeing that opportunity. You know, I come from the place not named anymore, and there's that variety. There's whatever cuisine you want to go to, and it's top notch. And you start to see that throughout the state of Texas, and especially it looks like Dallas leading the way on that. And we're excited to be a part of that with our restaurant show. But that ethnic diversity, that food variety, the ingredient variety, I think is what's exciting for me to see it come to Dallas and throughout the rest of the state.
Love that. Well, we are right at our time. Thank you everyone for joining us today. If you have not registered for the Texas Restaurant Show or purchased your ticket for Lone Star Bash, please do so. I promise you will not regret it. Tony and his team have put together an amazing event. And we all need to take that time to regroup, to work together, to really not just envision our industry's future, but create it, because we don't want to sit back and wait for it to happen to us. We want to take control of our destiny. So thank you, everyone. I dropped the link in the chat. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. And please help me thank our wonderful panelists for being here today.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.